Well, you know what your objective is.
Not very. It's a lack of talent.
When you get
Could be.
2 feathers like that, then you can pick a coal out of the day of fire, and then blow. And that's the fastest way to get your flame from a coal.
How did you pick up the coal?
You use 2 of those. Using those, pinch your coal between them, and
That's neat.
So you do that first thing in the morning when you still.
I'm making the bottom chip. Good. Now, this tree, if I sliced off all the rod, and then I noticed that when I hit the tree, how I crushed the wood. But the core of this tree is fairly sound because it's preserved by the saturation of the resin. Because here it goes. But until, see that might be that might roll. So we now free the tree by cutting it. Cut right off your tree. Instead of the opposite side. That's the line. You see how awkward it is. 2 of the logs from here, and the logs that's there, we will attempt to demonstrate ignition between the 2 logs. Every tree, now that one's split fairly parallel. I'm going to take off the rotted wood and see if the fresh wood behaves more like it should. But you take a great big block, and by doing this you end up creating at least 3 wedges. And then with those 3 wedges you split everything, anything. And this here has got the propensity of being pretty well parallel in its split. So it's making a liar out of me. So here I'm going to get a little closer and see if it'll run off to nothing. And generally, as soon as you can, the part that bends more runs off in that direction. Now that's brittle, too thin. Being in a foreign country, you don't make as nice a showing. Well, it's making a liar out of me because the wedges are paralleling here, because this wood has more of a tendency to not make shakes like cedar does or spruce does. With the knife, it's kind of an anomaly that I'm splitting the wood with a knife by hammering it in with an axe, but I have the precise control when I do that. And generally, if I want to split something with a less taper, I drive the knife. But when I take the knife and start bending it, usually I expect the taper to run off to nothing. To configure the best one first, the second best, the third best, and you do this, and this is the only time that I may not use a parallel type arrangement, because once this is then you stack a lot of these sticks, and once they really get going, you just carefully draw them out with the fork.
It's not that, we're in that age now where there's lots of Mr. Dad, stay-at-home dad. I like it, because I figure, you know what, they're not going to be that age forever.
Yeah,
and this is the fun. My wife even said that. She goes, I'm jealous in a way, because you're getting to see things that she saw. I'm seeing more with my son, because when there's a little age gap, 10 and 6, but you have 2 kids? Just one. Just one? Yeah.
Next, Mr. McIntyre, sir.
John.
Later, so you gotta get a press like that. We'll start talking.
It's number 8 coming up.
Time frame, go all the way down to the like when you guys use
and I was reading about it, and they said that if you, I think it takes 5 days, and there's
you sleep good?
you go
5 days.
Technicolor. And we're going to take a simulation of a bar. And two people are going to raise my pole, tuck that under, and people raise it about a foot because the way we got things. So this bar is put up on horses or whatever way, and we're taking wooden horses, not horse. Someone will hold that end up. Now this is slid forward, so you have two handles, and this is probably up here. And the limit of your power is the length of the handle clearing the ground, and you are winding the rope, and that is pulling the logs up to the higher levels of the log house you're building. This carpenter, he's using this winching technique, and this might be twice as long as what it is from what my picture is. That's the finish thing.
That's the drum.
This is the drum pole, and it may be a log that's 10 inches diameter at the far end, maybe this thick, and that's sitting there all the time to winch up those logs to the higher levels.
You could have that supported like.
Well, with
Here we made hammocks with no thread injectors. Just
kind of a
cut the fabric, ripstop, doesn't need to be hemmed. Field expeditious materials at hand. Hung it with 3 straps, all set.
$150 probably. Anyway, this is a very nice candidate. Sorry, tree. We like. It is what? It's a dying tree. We gotta say a prayer over it. What does a native person say? He says, "I'm sorry. I need it. I'm not being frivolous about it. And don't get the wrong idea. I have an improper attitude. I need to harvest you, but I'm going to really try to do a good job that your kin gets protected and not abused. You know, that sort of stuff. And they put a pinch of tobacco and because they're scared of the bad luck from the karma of mindlessness. They're understanding the need is there, so they hope the tree acknowledges it and so on. But I don't. This one wanted this thing just out of curiosity. And here is a flaw. And now, Ellsworth Jaeger knew that the native people had a legend that the thunder eagle resides in the birch. And he thought it was this pattern that you see on the trees, but he was wrong. It's in the cone. So there's 20 different birches. When you take paper birch and trouble the cone, you see little eagles are part of the cone. They look like. Can I make a roundness? That's a nice roundness. Also imagine a half-pound tobacco can. That used to be so common. They used to describe it that way. But I would say, now, have you got a hole? Do that. Can I pass my fist through there without touching? Barely touching. That's the. Now look at the rabbits. Are they normal size? Are they kind of smallish? Because you'll get rabbits that are smaller. Are they bigger? Because they could be cloned. If these things are being mangled, they're getting their forepaws in there, and they now can bite it off. Snare wire in particular, I'll show you maybe how to do that because it's simple enough. If you find your snares are disappearing, they're getting their forepaws and their snares around their waist. And they will jump and everything, they'll break the... one time I found the previous course was whoever was teaching was making the loops too big. I got this guy catches the rabbit and he tries to skin it, and then he noticed 4 snare marks on its waist. Right about there somewhere for determining. Now we release it and work here with our leaves. 4 fingers into the bottom is nice, and this has to be held open. That's pretty cunning. Cunning. What is that word? I hate to say, don't want to say dirty words, but what does cunning mean? You've heard the word, have you? It means smart like a woman. Go from here and you throw it, like this. Do it a few times. Vertical. may be the pinch bar against which the animal is crushed. And a pig, or two pegs. And over here is the support for the... So this trap is a deadfall. Now that deadfall may be applicable to a wide variety of creatures. Beaver, even bear. It's got to be pretty heavy for a bear. A bear trap deadfall. So I said, oh, I'll build a scale model because it's an awful lot of work to build a full-size one. So I whipped this up, a stick, and the people see all the mechanism. Then I said to John, I said, what size of tree would you use for this? You know, for this. And he looks around and he picks a tree like that. He says, that's a good tree. He says, a good tree for that. And I said, how the hell do you set the trigger? And he says, 2 jackals, and simultaneously carefully jack both up. You set the log up and set the trigger that takes the jackals out. Well, you know what a jackal is. I don't know. That's a Canadian term. It's that big, heavy...
Railroad jack.
Well, maybe that's
like a
huh?
Like a high lift?
High lift. No, they're got like a bar like that with big holes in the side. And and they've got these pins that slide in and out. We call them jackals. Well, anyway. I said, well, how did you set these snares before jackals came on the scene? Oh, well, we don't know. So here you got the problem. This would probably catch a mouse. But you know, you can make this in scale. So once you understand the principle, then you have to find the information somewhere that tells you what the scale is. So basically, probably, maybe a tree like that is going to catch. If you could catch rabbits, and I have no reason to think you can't, mink, marten, fisher, all those smaller animals. We also catch a lot of cats. People's cats are blundering into some of our snares. Surprising how far in the bush some of them go. Sometimes maybe even a dog. But you've got this principle where a heavy weight is lifted. There has to be a treadle, a bar that the animal depresses and it falls down. And the vicious people will actually, for bear, they'll actually put spikes here. And the spikes will help kill the bear, and it's got to be pretty heavy for bears. And if it's not heavy, there's logs laid on here to press things down and so on. So the ethnographers, they always found it quite. There's a lot to be said about bears. Traps. So there's often a lot of literature, a lot of books on it. Now over here, the commonest way that you might use forks, and comes the trick of this in many suspension systems. You might use something like this, keeping in mind that these could be fence posts. When you want a string not to slip off, you only need 1 notch. You don't have to go right around the stick. And here we have a rope. There's not an unlimited number of triggers. There's probably about a half dozen trigger types, and they keep recurring in a theme in a wide variety of situations. So we're going to follow the now the pole here has to be such that so you see the mechanism is here. This goes laying there, and this all has to be thin enough, and so it's so grossly heavy there. So the animal comes to go or pass through here because it's a path, and geez, don't do that too often. You've got to adjust things and then it's got to be tied with a little bit of slack to the other stick. the hook stays out of that triangle. Goes over. Oops. Now we start again. Got that. So it's very informative and very useful to the outdoors person to tell about, just what is the human body capable of standing and tolerating and on and on. So you get the stuff there. This chart is sort of based on, you start building the chart, probably in the 70s, 60s, 70s. Jerry was the first. The greatest amount of this information comes from Natick. Is that in Massachusetts, where they have the big research? People from there often phone me and ask me for some notes and fell a hard-sized tree. Because that's your objective, rather than a wire saw that's put in your kit because it's so stowable, as opposed to saying, well, there's people, they think in terms of, well, it's a saw, and they don't think in terms of when you're up to your keister and in muddy water, and there's a panther over there, and there's a crocodile over there, and some poisonous plant is trying to flick you in the face. You need the best tool there is. You need the survival when you're hungry and everything. You want something that really works for you, not the shadow of the thing. And now we're looking at planes, and I managed to do a passable job in that things are not out of plane, because they are. When a person tightens in, twang, it's apart, because things slip to the side, because things are crooked. And so paying attention to the bows, roll those two, get the biggest gap. Over here, you look at them to get the flare. That is, so if there's a bend, ideally you get that. This could have been done with very straight sticks, but you would have, gotten more of your flare from being shorter in there. But because of the bend, my contact point went there.
What's the, what if you use longer end pieces and then made the throat deeper? Is that negative?
Whatever your objective is in mind.
If you were looking at a big